Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Welcome to episode 70. We are back from Porsche Parade and we are at PCA National Headquarters. We are not using our normal equipment because they're somewhere in a pod coming back from Palm Springs.
Yes, and trying to save the club money, we shipped it on the pod. I mistook when Melanie, our events manager, said it would take 9 days. I simply counted on my calendar 9 days, and I said, yep, that works out perfect. And I didn't ask if it was 9 business days, which I should have known better. But in my head, I'm thinking, I see trucks on the road on Saturday and Sundays, but evidently we're not supposed to count that. So, MacGyver Forsyth, Robert, he said, I think I can pull it off, because I was in panic mode at that point because I envisioned us just passing around my iPhone. I'm like,
we've done worse.
This is going to be the most basic podcast we've ever done. So even though you'll have to forgive us if it's not the usual complement of photos and videos.
And our audio quality. Hopefully it's good.
Hopefully audio quality. Robert's been working very, very hard on the audio quality part. But we are managing to do this podcast and not miss a week.
Yeah. So you've obviously heard Manny. We've got Damon at the table, but we also have a special guest today with us as well. A dear friend of mine, someone that Manny often makes fun of on the podcast, a 37-year PCA member, Paul Gentile. Welcome, Paul.
Well, thanks for having me. I know this is the third invite I got, but third time's a charm, so we'll see how this works out.
So we were looking for, normally when our guests come on, we have a title for them. I thought of 36-year member, and I think, what did you come up with, Manny?
FOV.
FOV.
Friend of Vu.
Friend of Vu.
Well, because Paul's retired, I said he's not a vendor. Robert's always used to putting a title on our guest. And
I was almost afraid to ask what does FOV mean.
Me too.
It wasn't as bad as I thought.
I know.
Well, from my perspective, we could have come up with something better.
You can easily mute your mic.
So I called him on his bluff because all I ever hear is him saying how we should have on the Cars and Coffee people from the Cars and Coffee he goes to on Sundays and down in Burtonsville. And I said, well, here we are. You're now here.
I know, right?
And evidently, there's a Cars and Coffee Vu that I've been to Cars and Coffee, and I've never noticed that they're.
I don't notice that much of a difference.
You need to just come on Sunday, Manny.
I do come on that Sunday. Maybe he behaves when I'm around. But,
nah, I don't think so.
I've been going to the Burtonsville Cars and Coffee since high school, and a lot of the folks.
No, you have a reputation to uphold.
No. It's just it's a long time event, and I grew up around some of these hot rodders, and when I didn't even have a real car or anything like that, and some friends that made along the way, and we just kind of sit around at
talk cars.
Yeah, we don't wait. So when I go, it's like the Cars and Coffee folks, and then there's like 8 or 9 outcasts on a side parking lot that are you guys.
That's us, pretty much.
But that's because they've put a Burger King and a Starbucks, and so there's lots of traffic over there too.
There's this one restaurant that has like outdoor seating that we like to take, and it almost looks like you put like the outcast into a playpen, but it's just comfortable, so we sit there and we end up chatting about solving the world's problems. But it's a good time.
It is.
So let's first, congratulations to Damon and crew. We hit 75,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yes, finally 75,000. It's a great, it's 75 years of Porsche, 75,000 subscribers. But what we really want is 100,000 subscribers so we can get that plaque, which we don't have
We
yet.
don't have a plaque yet from YouTube. So 100K. So 25,000 more. Yep. So if you're watching us on YouTube, of course, please, if you enjoy it, hit that like button. But be sure to click that subscribe button.
Even if you don't like it, just hit subscribe.
Just do it for us.
Doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Tell your friends.
So the last podcast, we kind of mixed things up a little bit because we had a special handover of the Classic Club Coupe. So we moved the second podcast at Parade first, and this week we dropped the first podcast that we recorded at Parade. So today it is the day before July 4th, and then the day after Canada Day, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Sure.
is trying to keep all this together.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they will. We'll have already celebrated July 4th when people are listening
to this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
you think that you mentioned the handover to Jerry Seinfeld. I think it's worth mentioning how that went down and why the entire parade group was not invited to that handover.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because I've had a lot of people come up to me and say,
That
that
couldn't have happened during parade.
Exactly, or there didn't seem to be too many people there, and so I tried to explain to them that it wasn't open to the entire membership or the entire attendees of the parade.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would have loved to plan for it to be part of a major event at parade, but out of respect to Jerry, we asked him, would you like it just a small group of people, or did you want to integrate with it? And I think we all know he usually likes small gatherings, just because I've seen him, and Manny, I've seen him at public events, and it's really crazy what he goes through. I feel so bad for him. So I asked, and he did politely say it'd be great if you could just make a small gathering. So that's why we did it in a private area. It was at parade, it was at the La Quinta, but it was only about
an invited group were people that had a hand
in building
or developing this car, and that's how you got an invite, basically.
If I were picking up a car, I wouldn't want 1,500 people watching me. I'd probably, stall the car, the first time leaving. And,
I mean, we're not famous, right? So
Yeah.
I think it would be cool if you had a whole bunch of people while you're taking delivery of your dream car. It's different for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't get to do really much of anything private. So, what I noticed that, speaking of privacy, is every feat that he takes or drives, he probably has to take that into consideration. And I noticed this because once he took delivery of the car and drove off, he didn't even wait for anyone. Not that he was trying to be rude, but he just kind of is in his own little kind of pace. And so Bogdan and we followed him in the F-150, which we told him we would because we wanted to get some photos of the classic Club Coupe in the wild. And one thing I noticed at the first traffic light is he didn't pull up right next to the car next to him. He always parked about 45 degrees behind the car that was to the right, to the left of him. I'm like, I wonder if that's on purpose.
Because he doesn't want people to look across and maybe see him.
I know, right?
Probably.
So then we got to the next light. I'm like, sure enough, he did it again. And then the third light, he did it again. I'm like, man, that's got to be tough. Like, you got to take that much into consideration, even just driving your car around.
Yeah.
Or I wonder if he just doesn't want to be in somebody's blind spot.
No, because
I'm
he
gonna
parked
think-
in people's blind
Oh,
spots.
okay.
He parked in their blind spots.
So people, you got it right the first time,
Yeah.
so you can't look over
And see him
Jerry
behind him.
Seinfeld, take out your
But what
phone.
I think I mentioned this on the podcast when we talked about the delivery of the car, it was so cool to see the car in the wild, but to see him drive, and you know how you can tell someone's an enthusiast the way they drive by, clearly avoiding potholes, right? Going across the little dip in the road at a 45-degree angle, like he did all that stuff, like a normal car person would. That's pretty cool.
I do that in my BMW, but not because I'm an enthusiast.
You're worried things are gonna fall apart?
It shakes like a shopping cart if I hit a pothole.
Yeah. So, anyways, for those of you that were at parade and didn't get to be a part of it all, again, it was at his wish.
And
so.
it was very last minute. This was not something we
yeah.
came in the parade saying, well, this is going to happen for sure. Up until like when we finished recording Tech Tactics, there was a half-hour window and we were still waiting.
Yeah,
so
you
that
never
anything could
know
happen.
with folks in his industry and their schedule. Like they might get called to something last minute and hop on a plane to something. And I think he was supposed to be at the auction in Atlanta. The couple days before, and there was plans for him to be there, and something came up and he couldn't make it. So, while we were planning this, even though it was last minute, we were very hopeful, but we were never 100% that it was going to come through and work. And I'm glad it did. And what's interesting for me is how much spotlight it has put on the Classic Club Coupe, even though we've been talking about it for at least a year and have numerous press releases. Manny and I have done a video on it. We've talked about it on the podcast. But because all of a sudden now you've got Jerry Seinfeld tied to the car, 1.2 million tied to the car, everyone's like, huh, what are the details on this car? And we're like, oh my gosh, we've been talking about this for a year.
There's plenty online.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Plenty.
There's plenty.
Plenty
You
of
just
content.
have to, Google Classic Club Coupe, and you
what's
can learn
funny is
everything about it.
4 of the 5 e-brake, and so because we're a little bit behind. Had some e-brake problems. Sorry, everybody. On the 27th, but I'm finally doing the recap. I'll send today, July 3rd, and 4 out of the 5 stories were all Classic Club Coupe.
Yeah.
So I made a decision. I need to take one out that doesn't, like, the worst performing one. I'll just take that out so it's not just like a line of Classic Club Coupe stories. So yeah, the interest has gone up. You all want to hear about it, but why didn't you all want to hear about it and watch that video that we released for the past year? Because I really would have loved to see those views.
So it's great to see all the love for the 996. I was so proud for PCA and all the people that were involved in building the car, because he genuinely, and Manny was there, he was genuinely, happy that he won, the opportunity to own this car. And then last week, Yanni Cabiglio, who handles the collection for Seinfeld, called and he says, we make it a point that we never buy a car and drive it home. Like, we never do that. And of course he did that from Parade.
Really?
And when he got back to his collection, there's a 4-cam, I believe a 4-cam 356 waiting for him that he hadn't seen in a couple other cars. And Yanni was basically like, I couldn't peel him away from the 996. He said it was like the best drive ever. And I'm like, oh, they're talking about our car. Makes us feel pretty proud.
I think it was pretty cool that he drove it.
Pretty cool that he drove it. And
As opposed to driving it into a trailer and then
it had 200 miles on it when he started the car from La Quinta, and he would have put 200 miles driving it back home. So he doubled the miles just driving it. So, and he was with a smile on his face.
See, I would have gone all fanboy if he would have brought Larry David with him.
Oh yeah.
No, you've been no good.
I
I would have kept you away.
Because up until then, Jerry, you just give him the chin. You like, hey,
Oh
how's
yeah.
it going?
So.
Larry David, I would have gone full fanboy.
So I see you have a couple of, wrap up from Parade, which includes the 5K run.
So you finished second.
I finished second in my. And this is
Do
my
we
last
go
year.
with
Last
how
year,
many people are in the class?
I was gonna say,
this is
second
the
out of
last
two-
year
out of
in
two.
this age group. So next year I move up to the next age group. Unfortunately, Nathan is a year younger than me. So for this, I never finish first, right? Because
Oh yeah, that's the reason why you
that's
don't finish first.
So this is sort of how I got a first place trophy at Parade, and I was a little bit surprised about it. I was the only one in my class.
I was not the only one. I was not. Nathan was in my class, and there was a couple of other people. But I ran like the person behind me. I'm not kidding you. I ran because the person behind me looked like they could have been in my age group, but I wasn't sure. And every corner I kept looking. I was like, "Is he still behind me?"
Did
Is
you
he
cut
still
him off a few times?
No, and I didn't cut corners or anything. And I ran. I finished.
So when he started walking, you walked.
No.
Yeah.
No,
What was your time? Your
I
time
did-
was like 32 minutes, wasn't it?
30 something. I don't know.
That's on the verge of walking.
Did you walk at all?
Yeah.
Huh? No,
you
I don't.
walk
I when I do a 5K, my goal really is never to walk. Like, that's almost like the walk of shame.
Or your
so.
strides less than a foot.
I don't know. All I know is I felt like I was still running, and then I crossed the line.
It's called shuffling.
Shuffling. It's not a power walk. I'm faster than a power walk, at least. But I finished.
It's like the pickleball version of running.
Hey.
Oh, there you go.
I love pickleball. Kudos to you and the series of Tech Tactics on, was it Friday? Was it Friday? It's all
Tech Tactics Day.
Tech Tactics Day. Yeah. A lot. We recorded how many? Four videos?
Yeah, the one I wish we would have recorded, and I'd like to have them back, is the one about bodywork.
Oh, Mike Kukovic.
Yes, that was such a eye-opening. I really want to have him back. I'm going to see if I can get him to
Get him for-
Tech Tactics West,
Yes.
because what I learned from that is if you wreck in a new Porsche, hope that you get totaled. Because, oh my God, he was showing us like photos of stuff they cannot repair the way the factory built it. It's impossible. And so he was showing how they make braces. They said this is the correct way where you will have the same structural rigidity as factory, but you're going to have a brace. So the brace tells you yes, it's been fixed, but it's been fixed right, which of course led to the discussion of what about the shops that aren't factory authorized? They can't get these parts. Who can say they will fix it just as good or better, and they're missing like these important braces. And we were showing those welds that you don't see anymore once the car is built, but that are integral to the repair of the car. It was
Well, it's not like in the old day where you're using one material, one metal, and then you're putting on a Select machine, and you're just even back then
the rivets,
everything is like it's a system, right? And so if you have a non-authorized body shop working on your car, it may look like it's right because they pulled it straight or whatever, but the structural integrity of all these pieces have been compromised.
He was pointing out some YouTubers that will buy salvaged cars that have been totaled and given a salvage title, and then they resurrect them.
Yeah.
And he said, we love watching them because when they show their repairs, it's very cringeworthy because these cars are not repaired correctly, and if they're ever in an accident, it's not the same impact protection that
or
Porsche
not even in, well, obviously an accident you worry about that, but if you're taking the car in like a high performance setting where you're putting stress on the chassis or on the components that haven't been rebuilt or fixed correctly, if they fail in that high performance application, that in itself could send you into the wall or send you flying off the track.
Hey, you understand why these cars are so easily totaled.
Yeah.
What looks like, would have been 30 years ago an easy repair because of the labor involved. It's not that hard to total a car.
Where were we that we were just talking about modern day cars in general are just more likely to be totaled because of
electric cars for sure.
Components
Electric cars
like
are,
headlights are really expensive. Airbags. I mean, when all that stuff goes off, the bills. I mean, when my daughter's car didn't look bad at all, and it was total because both airbags went off.
I mean, you get a car that, a newer car that has a bit of value to it, it's a little bit tougher. But, how many of us have a car that's 5 years old? And if you get into a minimum accident, it could easily total the car nowadays.
Yeah. I think 75.
Actually,
well,
speaking
mine,
of, I was gonna say, what's the latest on your car?
We'll see. I had to move it to another shop because apparently the adjuster for and this is my Golf where I hit a deer back in May. The adjuster apparently, again, not naming names, so my insurance company seemed to be fine, although my first shop that I wanted to take my car to doesn't deal with progressive customers. This other shop said it's not your company, it's the adjuster who was new about 5 or 6 weeks ago. He rolled up to my shop, sat in his car for 15 minutes and left, and then called my insurance company and said that the shop owner wasn't there. And he had it all on camera and all that.
Oh my god!
So basically, I've gone to an in-network shop, and hopefully it's all good. But on to your point, my Golf was a base model, so it had the base headlight, none of the fancy equipment. So that's probably kind of going towards them not totaling it yet, which hopefully they don't. But
honestly, I mean, I feel bad for you.
Yeah.
But probably the cleanest thing for you is that you hope that it gets totaled because the thing is not only going through the process of getting all these approvals and stuff like that. Then you got to make sure that the car is repaired correctly. And if it's not going to be repaired correctly, then you're going to have these little gremlins that are just going to annoy the heck out of you.
Yeah,
so.
That's what I'm scared of. But hopefully,
but I know it's it is a very special car, manual,
diesel, right?
Yeah. There's that, but there's also the $341 a month that I don't have in car payments, which for 6 years I've been looking forward to. But we'll see how that goes.
Speaking of which, I think Nathan will be okay with me sharing this. He recently bought a compact manual diesel.
I think you talked about it
compact.
On one of the shows he went to parade.
Did he? Did he talk about
Yeah.
Chevy Cruze.
Yeah, he talked about his
super rare.
For a while.
Super rare.
Did
That's why he bought it. He didn't need it, but
he didn't need it. Yeah.
He didn't
So
need it.
So my daughter's Cruze, as you may remember, was a manual, which I thought was a unicorn. But yeah, a Cruze manual diesel, even
and didn't even know they made it.
Who builds that Chevy diesel? Because all I think of Chevy
Isuzu,
and
maybe?
diesels are back at the days of.
That's
Well, now they have.
It's probably them. I mean, that was. I think they were jumping onto the diesel bandwagon right when
they got their trucks right.
right.
But
I don't know.
Maybe it's an Isuzu motor.
I don't think so.
No, didn't they have a relationship with them for a while?
That was a long time
maybe
ago.
at some point.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm not sure.
So anyway, Tech Tactics was success for content will be slowly trickling out. This coming Wednesday, we're actually showing a Tech Tactics episode from Tech Tactics East with Rolf about tire geometry.
Oh, that's a
and
great
suspension.
session.
It's really
Yes,
good because
that was a good one.
It shows you just don't simply put a 21-inch wheel in your car and expect life to be the same.
Nope.
It's there's a lot involved, and he discusses that in very easy to understand terms. So a lot of the guys from my region were asking me when is that going to come out, because they were quoting Rolf and the stuff he said, but there was some stuff they couldn't remember.
I watched it twice because I sat in it on Saturday and on Sunday. It was that good.
Yeah, Rolf really loves his work, and we're happy to have him. So from Parade, we did the last one was Chris Jacobs, which turned out really well. Of course, he's just the consummate professional, and he answered all the questions, including our president's question of whether he really did get punched.
I thought it was crazy. I didn't know about that episode. I want to watch that episode.
Yeah, he recounted the whole story.
That's crazy.
How he ended up getting punched by a guy because the whole premise of the show is they pranked the person who's getting his car overhauled, and.
He took a guitar and smashed the guy's windshield, which they were going to replace anyway, right? And the guy didn't realize it was Frank.
Must have been an earlier version because they were pranking people in the beginning and they stopped, and maybe it was because of that.
I guess, but man, he got. Luckily, I think he didn't get hit square in the jaw, and he was moving while he got hit, and it wasn't that bad. So
we had him. We had Lee Giannone from Mecum, who talked about his experience in selling cars at a live auction and what to expect, and answered a lot of questions, which I knew people would have who may be thinking about selling their car at a live auction, but were too afraid to ask, or just never had the opportunity to ask, the general questions when it comes time to sell your car. As what are my options if I go to a live auction? It was a pretty good day.
We did the values, right? The values with Nathan.
Yes, that
that's
one.
out.
That'll be popular.
Yeah, it's we got a lot of good content all 3 days from. Well, What's My Porsche Worth was released immediately, and that's become like a regular now at Parade. That's a full audience. People come to schedule their Thursday around that event.
And Damon, the quick turnaround for the Concours, that's doing really well. I think it's almost 25,000 views now.
Yeah, I think it's more actually. So very good video. It's now watch the next one, the Autocross Cayman video. Give that one a little more love.
The Autocross Steve.
Yeah. It's kind of funny
Tara
actually.
Lauskar, yeah.
So when I looked at on YouTube, obviously the Concours video is doing a lot better views wise than the Autocross video, but more people have clicked on the Autocross video in e-brake news than on YouTube. It's kind of funny to see how our audience, on our
people
newsletter.
were pretty happy to see how crazy that car. And I know I was, because when I first saw and heard about the car, and you were at Autocross, I was like, go look at that car, because I know, I knew him from the Monterey Porsche Parade, and he was quick in a GT3, I think it was then. So to see, the husband and wife both be super quick in a crazy built car.
Yeah, that's goals right
awesome.
there. Yeah, that would be nice to put that.
That car was
it's wicked,
well done.
Wicked, very well done. I mean, they're having a lot of fun with it.
And yes, we did use every cone that we had in the trailer. Or at
So
least it looks like it.
This is really funny. So being from San Diego originally, and I don't know if it's just San Diego or just out there, but everybody out on the West Coast, I feel like, or in California, thinks that the whole autocross course needs to be lined with cones.
Really?
The whole autocross, and you stay in between the cones. There's no interpretation. Now, this was somewhere in the middle, but there were a lot of cones, and it didn't let you figure it out. It almost pointed you exactly where you need. It was still kind of tough, but so we don't line courses 100% out here. You put a few cones at each corner, and then you have to interpret the rest.
Right, exactly, and that interpretation can get you a second or slow you down, and
But usually is also a product that the club doesn't have.
Right, that
700 cones. So.
Well, apparently in SoCal they have a lot of cones.
But you were the only one here that got to participate in the autocross this year, and it looked like competition was pretty fierce.
It was, yeah. We talked about it a little bit in the last podcast, or I guess maybe it would be 2 podcasts ago since we switched the order up. But I didn't think I won an award. I got first place. Apparently, they're 4 or 5 different levels of improved class, and I was in one, and the other improved guys were not in my class. So participation trophy. It was still pretty nice. You know, I'm happy with the time, but that course.
So you got a first place.
I got a first place.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. It's
First
exactly.
place is first place.
Who were you driving against? I don't
the last
remember.
time Lewis Hamilton got a first place.
Yeah, true.
Oh.
True.
Oh.
Does that mean I'm better than Lewis Hamilton?
Oh no, it doesn't.
He went
No,
there.
it doesn't. I thought it was interesting that his wife was like just under a second.
She was faster than him until the last
the
run.
end. Yeah,
and
that's impressive.
This is Steve and Tara, not Lewis
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Tara,
well,
also a SCCA national champ.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's only been autocrossing for 5 years.
But that was a
That's
fun course.
impressive.
A little slow in a couple areas, but a fun course. Complicated.
So for me, the highlight of Parade had actually nothing to do with Parade. We had packed up everything, packed up all our suitcases, and Parade was fantastic. But the thing that I enjoyed for that trip was our little non-PCA, before we got to the airport, detour to Joshua National Park. Joshua Tree National
Tree.
Park.
You almost got it right.
Yeah. That was so cool.
That's our tribute to the U2 album cover, Joshua Tree, which I'm supposed to be waking up. That's a bad. Just to put that in context.
And I wasn't there because I was going to San Diego.
Yeah, not
to meet
everybody
family.
could join us because they had different flight times out. But
Yeah.
for those of us that had similar flight times, what was that? Skull something, Skull Rock,
Skull Rock.
Skull Rock, and it was just cool. It feels like you landed on the moon or some weird place, and nothing was around except for these unique rock formations and cactus.
They're not really trees. They're
Yeah.
bushes.
Yeah.
They look like trees.
I've camped out there many years ago.
It was a lot of fun.
Family.
And we
These photos don't show the truth because Vu was terrified as he was climbing to the top.
I am not a person.
It's only
that
about
likes
20
heights.
feet high.
Yeah, but it felt like I was on a 40.
He was
story,
hugging
but-
those rocks like he was at the top of Mount Everest.
And I didn't bring the proper shoes either. I had not dress shoes, but just walking shoes. Whew, that was scary.
I had a comment, but I'll hold it for later.
So, anyways, so I loved Palm Springs, that area, or La Quinta, California, where we were at. Yes, it was hot, but it was when I got off the plane, when we landed, what was it 12:30 or so?
12:30. It was 2 o'clock.
What time did we land? 2
Like
o'clock in
2
the morning?
o'clock,
Yeah.
yeah.
We landed at 2 o'clock in the morning at BWI, and as soon as we got off the plane, it felt so
Oh
much
my
more
God.
gross.
It hit you like a wall.
Oh my gosh, it felt so much more gross than out in
We
Palm
lucked out.
Springs.
We only got the super hot weather on the check-in day and then the welcome party day.
Yeah, I mean,
And then we lucked out for the
but it
rest
was
of the week.
it was
So.
90 and 100, right? It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
technically 90
Dry.
and
But
100,
it's a dry heat.
but and I get it now. I totally
Yeah.
get it now. It wasn't hot, yes, but it was comfortable hot, which I never really understood.
For
that.
normal Palm Spring weather, it would not have been comfortable that whole week. We lucked out.
Oh, we lucked out.
Yeah.
Oh,
June
I-
in Palm Springs is usually over 100 all the time. So
It-
we
and
lucked
that-
out.
I will clear this up because I've said this so many times. Every parade's hot.
Every parade's hot.
We've been to Steamboat Springs and it was a heat wave
Yeah.
and it was hot. The odds that you're going to be in a cool place going to be cool is very low.
Yeah.
It has to be held in a 6-week window because they've held parade in the fall and it's been terrible as far as attendance. It's a family event, so a lot of people bring their kids with them. Kids are in school, so this little 6-week window is where we have to choose from.
Yep.
And they've done surveys in the past where people said make it shorter. We made it 5 days. Disaster. Everyone complained because the people who go to parade realize it's a week-long event and they want to be there the week and not 5 days.
And when we did it 5 days, you compressed all this stuff
was
together.
terrible.
It was terrible.
So and parade is very successful, so it's not like we're not selling out. They sell out. So it's going to be hot.
It was interesting to see those comment online about how PCA didn't do it right by having it in Palm Springs because it was hot. I tell you what, there were a lot of happy faces in Palm Springs, and it was spectacular.
That was a great
The
parade.
mornings, like that run in the morning, although I wasn't lightning fast, I really enjoyed it. It was gorgeous out, and the
but-
Concours
What,
looked
60
good.
degrees made you faster?
Huh?
No. No. In a word, no. But with a large group like that, you're always going to get.
Let's all of us race right now. Let's go out and just.
You'll
maybe
always
not
get.
you.
You'll always get somebody to complain.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's the
just-
thing is, but the weird thing is, you didn't even go. Why are you even complaining, right? Like, what's the
It
point
was,
of you?
Because
there
they can.
There was plenty of air conditioning spots if you wanted to cool off, or you wanted to spend. I spent most of the time in air conditioning.
That's the thing is, they do not skimp on air conditioning. And most of the indoor places on the property, I felt it was too cold because you went from 100 degrees to 70, and it was like,
And everywhere I went in the resort, there was a water cooler with cups.
Oh, everywhere.
Always filled. And so you couldn't have been dehydrated either because, and they weren't charging for just water. You just went up and poured it yourself, and it was. I think they managed to heat very well.
They did, absolutely.
Yeah,
And like
agreed.
I said, I was also pleased to see there were a lot of first-time PCA members go. And I think a lot of times we also get jaded that we see, and have access to things from Porsche, and these people's eyes are just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we get to see a 963. We get to, have this huge Porsche lettering, and everywhere they looked, they were just amazed that all this kind of came together. Oh, and the Transformer.
Yes. Yeah. And kudos to the member services team. They had record sales for merchandise in the parade store, and they brought new stuff out every day. Every time I walked in the store, there was a lot of people inside of it. And it was only open to PCA members, which was kind of funny because they told me what their most popular question was, is there a discount for PCA members? And they had to explain, well, only PCA members are allowed to shop in here.
Yeah.
But they had some cool merchandise, and that goes towards keeping the cost of parade at a minimum. And that's all, it contributes right back to the event.
Absolutely, and this is a good time to thank all of the Porsche Parade volunteers. There's I think close to 700 volunteers. The Porsche Parade planning committee, and of course, as you said, Manny, the headquarters staff that worked day and night. Like they came out early, set up early in the morning, work through the day, and then finish up late at night. Like, they're so tired they don't even want to go to a banquet. They just want to go back to the room and kind of reset and back at it. And 5 days straight, that's crazy.
Yeah, so although I did reach the ultimate inner circle, Paul, here at the office.
What was that?
There's this inner circle of inner circles, and that's the member services inner circle.
I don't know.
This
You might think
parade-
you've reached that, but
This,
I don't
at
know.
least for my wife, I was able to attain, and I was invited to dinner and breakfast with the member services team. That's pretty, that's,
I think it has to do with Roxanne.
I think
It
it's
has to do
I
with
only met
Roxanne.
your
regardless, and I still got in.
That's a participation trophy if I
It's
ever
like
heard
in,
one.
in the show The Office, they have the Finer Things Club.
Uh-huh.
That's what this is equivalent to. It's it's to be able to hang out with the member services team. It's Panorama team. It's everyone belongs to that.
Look, while I only met your wife for the first time at Hunt Valley, I think it was your wife that
Yes,
got you
I
on.
would
It's a lot of charity on her part.
So speaking of invitations, we got a call from Tom Chan at TPC Racing
Yes.
to come over and check out a 993 C4S. In itself is an amazing car, but this one was a little bit more special.
Yeah, it was supercharged, and what I thought was interesting was active suspension, which was never available on the 993 or 996. That was a 997 feature, and so here's the chance to have a car that on the outside looks fairly stock and air cooled, classic, but with more horsepower and a suspension that has settings. What was it? Normal, comfort, and Sport Plus.
Yeah, something like that.
something like that,
Three
yeah.
different settings.
So wasn't it KW who makes these shocks, and they've developed some sort of
No,
There's-
these are made by Tractive.
Tractive?
Tractive,
okay, yeah.
and then I think the controller box is made by DSC, which is
Yeah, one
TPC.
of their
And
companies.
what I like about it is because, as most of G body cars are air cooled cars, even at other than the 993 turbo, but the normally aspirated cars, they're at what you would consider a conservative horsepower number by today's standards, right? Like a standard Honda Accord today is like 300 horsepower. A 993 normally aspirated motor is like 282 horsepower. So here you have an option to get a bump of like 80 real horsepower, not additive by putting an air cleaner and blah 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 on your car. Like truly 80 more horsepower at the wheels, and then a suspension that you can actively control like a modern day car. the car still looks completely vintage. Everything that you're doing to the car can be reversed if you want to put it back to stock. But now your car is modernized. And so I had done a video recently of a stock 993 turbo, which I think is 400 horsepower. This
405 or
405, right?
I
So
think
this
that's what it
993
is,
has an additional 80 horsepower with the supercharger. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. It's going to be close to that 993 that I just drove. And like from like 0 to like, getting off the line, I definitely felt as though the C4S didn't have as much grunt. So initially in my video, I talk about how that is, but where it really changed for me is when you were like in third gear and going through the twisties, the power was like way more instant and a lot more point and shoot fun than the 993 turbo. So even though it was lower on power, on the back roads, it had like that jump and that torque that I felt like was much more fun than a 993 turbo, which was I wasn't expecting that at all. And I changed my opinion of the car while I was doing the review. I'm like, this is a fun ride, and you get that man. I don't know if you heard the supercharger whine when it gets in. It just adds like a different dimension that this car is special, and the suspension was like comfortable, yet it was so stable.
That was the fun interaction we had with Bogdan. Because he's from Ukraine, and we're trying to teach him that a supercharger makes a whining sound, not the whoosh. So he was doing a social media post, and I said, you should put on there, like, here to whine. Yeah. And so he spells it like wine, like we drink.
Without an H.
And I'm like, well, I like that. I said, but for here, you got to put W-H-I. Yeah. And so then he spelled it W-H-I with no N-E. And I'm like, now you got to put the...
But here's the thing is, normally we do these videos with all of Damon's equipment with suction cups and this, that, and the other, and Damon was still making his way back from parade, so Boggs actually handheld the GoPro inside, and as I'm rolling through gears, he's trying to not move, and hopefully the video came out all right.
They've got good stabilization.
Yeah, we only really had one day to pull this off because the car was done and had to go to back to its owner, but I'm glad Manny kind of pushed me to go out and try it out because it was quite special.
Yeah, the active suspension, we don't see that very often for a older car.
Yeah.
And I was really curious to see how it would ride, and it was, it wasn't as easy as it is on the modern cars where you have the little knob and you just switch it. But it was just a button you pressed that was under the dash. And you can locate the difference.
Yeah, you can locate that button wherever you feel it's most convenient for you. This one they kind of put it to the right of the center console, and with the LED off, that meant it was in comfort. And then with the LED, when you push it and the LED on, it was like sport. And then if you push it again and the green light flashes, it was Sport Plus. And very simple.
Yeah, and the normal mode on the road we went was just fine for me. It was very compliant.
And what I like about it is, sometimes when people do like sport suspension on their cars, it's kind of terrible for the street. And, it doesn't track well and all that kind of stuff. This one tracked it. The car didn't like want to go left or right on its own. Everything was nice, straight, and stable. But you could tell the car just didn't sway as much. And I don't know, Manny, if you tried it. I tried a hard brake to see how it has an accelerometer built in.
Well, no, Vu, because my previous driver left me with the check engine light. So my ride was a little bit cut short.
No.
He would be a terrible 24-hour co-driver.
It was a shakedown run. That was
Yeah, so I brought the car back in one piece. And no check engine light. He hops in somehow, and then a check engine light. Well, it turns out it was just a bad O2 sensor, which was actually a good thing.
I looked at the pressure and the temps, and I'm like, it's got to be emissions.
And that's what a shakedown, right? You were shaking down the car. So
they were very happy that it happened then and not when the owner got it. So
exactly.
We helped the owner. He got a new fresh O2 sensor.
Yep.
And hopefully
he's going to enjoy that car.
That supercharger can be very addictive.
Yeah.
Just with the wine.
Is it a local car?
No, it's New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Now the thing is, the supercharger system that they put on that car, that's been out for like 20 years. Like Mike and his crew have been doing that for a long time. They don't do it so much anymore because there aren't that many people.
Similar to what he puts on Caymans, Boxsters.
No, they do turbos.
Turbos for that.
They used to do turbos for the 993 Carrera S or 993 Carreras in general. But I remember when we were there before we drove it, I think it was for the 964 suspension install, he was telling us that the turbocharger system, harder to tune and get right, more money, takes longer, more things can go wrong, it's harder to reverse.
Yeah.
Whereas a supercharger, you just it's a bolt-on. They run it at like 3 or 4 psi, something
4
real
psi,
low.
4 psi, and it's just everything before the injectors. So you pull off the intake, put a new intake on, supercharger sits, everything sits on top, right?
And it's belt-driven, obviously, so it's easier
you don't
to
have to
predict how it
You don't have to mess with the exhaust. It's the intercooler is liquid cooled, and again sits on top. So
they stopped doing the turbochargers for those cars, I believe, because nobody was buying them, and the supercharger system just made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And it's reversible with these cars.
A lot easier to
A lot
reverse.
easier,
Yeah.
All right, Manny, you want to give us a Rennsport update?
It's we of course we have meetings every week. We had meetings out of Parade. We went through the entire list of legends that are coming to Rennsport. We put our wish list in, so as we get closer to things being final, I hope to publish our list and get our schedule out as soon as possible. We are still accepting volunteers. So if you're coming to Rennsport and you have some time, I think the shifts are 3 to 4 hours. It's a great place to meet new friends, or if you come with friends, you can be placed together, helping us park cars, helping us work on the Porsche plots, which used to be called Cayman Island. They are going to be doing autograph sessions at Cayman Island, which is pretty cool because they have so many legends and they want to make the opportunity to get autographs to everyone. So keep an eye out for information on that. But that's never happened before to us, where they brought the legends all the way over for autograph sessions.
Yeah, we're gonna have a full schedule.
We're going to have they approved our request to have a kids judging. So they have the concours on Saturdays. And I asked them if it's any way possible for the PCA Juniors program to get involved and maybe have 5 or 6 teen judges. And you got to start them young and understanding what concours judging is. So they love the idea. So Laura and I are going to work with the juniors and bring them over. And hopefully the concours will be closed, at least to the public, for a little bit, so we can have a close look at the cars, and the teens will be able to judge some cars. And personally, I think the most prestigious award
I agree.
PCA gives out.
I agree.
And I've won overall concours is it the Little People's Award?
Juniors.
But they called it. I thought there was it said on the concours award, Little People's
I don't recall.
favorite or choice or something like that. Anyways, the one the kids pick is
Yes.
the award you want to win.
So speaking of Cayman, we know Paul has the SC. He has the Macan recently. But you are looking for a Cayman, more specifically a Cayman R.
Yeah.
And
But you can't have mine, but mine's not an R. So
yeah.
But not a Boxster Spyder.
Well, actually, as time has progressed, Cayman R or a Boxster Spyder.
My vote. You should
I know. He
Cayman R.
prefers Cayman.
Yeah.
So
Boxster Spyder.
I would say it would be a function of what kind of comes up first.
Yeah.
And when.
Yeah.
For you, Boxster Spyder, I mean, the Cayman R, it's almost the exact same car. You know, obviously the roof being one of a few differentiations, but are you going to autocross it? Or are you going to take it to the track?
No.
Then Boxster Spyder, right? That's kind of.
Well, not only that. I mean, I love the Cayman R. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a fantastic car, and you're right. If you're autocross or track focused, there is no question you're going to go with a Cayman R. But I think the Spyder is just a beautiful vehicle. It has the underpinnings, very similar to an R. And the fact that you have no filter between your head and the exhaust, like, I think the enjoyment of driving that car is just superior.
When we heard the inside story about how that top was approved, that sold me. I even told Roxanne, I'm like, if something came along, I'd be real hard pressed not to convince myself to find a place to store a 987 Boxster Spyder, because that top, evidently they never thought it would get approved.
Yeah.
They put it out there and said they'll tell us what to change, and they were blown away when the board approved it as is. And even the latest Boxster Spyder, or the RS, I guess, Spyder, uses a very similar top where you have the rear window. It's a two-piece top, so the rear window basically rolls up. And then what's even more interesting, we found out that in the press photos of the new RS, they did not include a rear window.
Yeah,
and a member sent me an email asking me, did it come with the rear window? And I'm like, well, sure.
It's removable, right? It's not.
But
it's
in
a
the photos, they took it out.
Yeah, it's a two-piece.
And so when we asked, they said, well, we'll send you a video of how to take the top down, but you can't publish it. And in the video, it shows the rear window being, and I'm not sure if they didn't show it for photo reasons or they thought it was more photogenic.
I love it when it's the two-piece because then you can drive with just the top
bikini
part.
top.
I think I'd probably most times it wouldn't be on.
Probably for you, yeah. Yeah. Now the question is finding one. I mean, finding any Porsche is hard today, but finding that.
So do you want PDK or stick?
No, I can't. I'm not.
You just made that even more difficult. Is now now.
And then trying to find one that hasn't been tracked, if it's a Cayman R,
yeah,
is even more difficult.
Cayman R is probably more likely than a Spyder.
And then what kind of mods are done, and some mods would be okay. It just depends.
You're still in the window where there's probably more stock cars out there than modified.
Boy, not what I've seen. More Spyders not modified, but even a couple of Spyders have had some.
But what do you consider modifications? Like,
well, I don't know.
Exhaust is okay.
Exhaust is okay. I don't know that I want to get into any kind of crazy tunes or anything. I really just don't know that you can go back.
Yeah.
Tune, suspension, all that stuff. For me, if you buy a Cayman R or Boxster Spyder, you leave the stuff like that stock, because why else would you buy it?
I don't want
the magic of those cars is the suspension, how Porsche delivered from the factory. And if you buy a Cayman R and then put a set of Bolins on it, sure, it might handle well and soak up bumps well and be lower. But was it worth doing that to a
then
Cayman
you could
R?
Just do what you did. Is just buy standard
Cayman S.
Yeah, I don't want one with suspension that's been modded either.
Well, the thing is finding manual in either of those cars in the condition that you want. There's just people that have them know what they have, and they are all, I think, keepers for a long time. So
I think I'll.
But you're patient.
I will
you are
find
patient. You will find one.
I'll find one.
Because someone's going to go into like a GT3 or something and then have to get rid
any
of.
particular color you're looking for?
Gentile.
Well, go ahead. You could say it.
I call it Gentile white because he loves white cars.
But I have more red cars now.
You do
than
now.
I do
But
have
when
more
we
red
first
cars.
started hanging out, every car he had was white.
Every factory race car that's won Le Mans come out in white.
That's what Manny loves.
The only color I would say, I don't know the exact name. The launch color for the R, that green.
Oh, the green. Peridot
I
green.
don't know.
Peridot or Peridot?
I think it's Peridot.
Yeah.
That's a little too much for me to take.
That's very polarizing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Other than that, I mean, silver's nice. I don't know if I want gray, but I don't know how particular I can be on color.
I don't think you can be. Other than if you don't like Peridot, right?
That's probably the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I could live with it.
So speaking of your other cars, you recently had some work underneath of the 3.2, the SC.
3.0.
3.0.
Now, so for those who don't recognize the name, Paul is the one who has lent us his red 911 SC that I drove and Manny drove, but we didn't make a video of that not too long ago.
You didn't make the editing cut? What happened?
I thought Damon would do a better job.
Oh.
Honestly, I told him to drive it too because I thought he'd do a better job. But with the dry ice, it was interesting. I was interested to hear Paul's impression because my beef with dry ice isn't with dry ice itself; it's with social media and with the false expectations that YouTubers will put on there, and they make it seem like it's a miracle elixir that it makes your car look brand new automatically, and every dry ice job will do this. And so people show up at the dry ice place expecting their cars to be spotless underneath, and they have to be educated that it's going to cost.
Yeah,
there's a lot of labor involved. That you have different ayers, and where we got it done, they told us, well, here it is. We've already used 1,000 pounds of dry ice.
Yeah,
we can go further, but it's going to obviously cost.
It's time and labor.
And further is like these little dots that once again you're looking for the social media results. that's where you get the perfection.
Yeah.
I remember looking at it and go, you know what? It looks so much cleaner than it did before. I'm happy where it's at. And I was talking with Steve Wood, who had his 964. I think you can do surgery on his. And so he was telling me about he wanted to have it where he could see in a line of sight when the wheel was off or through the wheel. But then he had to have transmission work done, so he ended up doing vapor honing on the whole thing.
Oh my God!
And he got he got it perfectly clean. But it's setting expectations and not thinking that every dry ice job.
I feel like it's painting one room in your house. When you paint that one room, that room looks really good, but all the other rooms
Well,
now
it's painting it
all
like a
look
different color with one coat.
Yeah,
And then to get it perfect, you're gonna need multiple coats.
Right. And then all the other rooms that you didn't touch look old.
Well, it's interesting because when the car was here for the Tech Tactics Live, and I talked with Nathan, we talked about it a little bit. The thing is, it's only as good as what comes off.
Yeah.
So what's underneath, it's not going to be if there's like surface
It's not
rust.
going to polish it.
It's
Right.
not going to. There's nothing to
It's
polish.
just taking the dirt and stuff.
And
off.
so you really have to set your expectations. Now the challenge with my car was, so the car was built in '83, and back then a lot of dealers upsold you with undercoating.
Is that like the Z-Bart stuff?
Well, Z-Bart was like a rust prevention, so they'd shoot it in the doors and in the cavities. But this was just tar sprayed on, and it was really thick.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
took a lot to get it off.
So they took off all that undercoating?
A good amount of it.
Yeah.
But at some point, you're at a point of diminishing returns. It just you need more 500. You could get dry ice in 500-pound chunks. I forget how much it costs, and then there's the labor. And so at one point, we just had to stop.
What about Cosmoline? So
The Cosmoline comes off like nothing. I wish
okay.
it was just Cosmoline.
Ah.
But of course, the car was up at is a GT Performance, and the engine was out, and so Gennady cleaned all that. So
okay.
that transaxle and the motor were all clean. But a lot of it came off. But
So now your car is the cleanest it's ever been.
yes.
So are there like after dry icing routine? Like what do you do? I mean, your car
I don't
never
know.
even-
it hasn't been that long,
Yeah, and you don't drive it in the rain or anything. Or you
no,
don't get caught
no.
unless you get caught in the rain.
Yeah.
So did they say you have to maintain it a certain way, or
I mean, you can just kind of wipe
it down?
It's gonna get road dirt on it. Yeah. The interesting thing, we did the wheel wells, and when the wheel wells get done, they take a sponge with paint and they just dab it
to make it look?
to make it look.
used to
And
look, yeah.
when you look at the wheel well now, you see guards red, but in places you don't see it. And my first thought was, well, why didn't you do it over here? Well, because when they spray the car,
Yeah.
that's just overspray. They didn't spray the whole wheel well.
Yeah.
They
You mean
just
from the factory?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So that's why, Bob, he said
That's how it's supposed to
that's
look.
how it should look. So, yeah.
Your car has always been incredibly clean, and I haven't seen it the after of dry ice. I imagine it's ready for a concours.
in spots, but in some spots not so much because some things just were
It's
too
one of those
difficult.
things where only you know
Yeah.
what's not clean or perfect.
Well, I was going to do the E46 M3 before I sold it.
Yeah.
And I think that would have come out very similar to what the hype is online because that car is newer.
Yeah.
And
Did it have the tar?
no, there was just some Cosmoline and then just sort of road dirt. That's it.
So Manny, you're Concours dude from the past. So Cosmoline, was that from the factory or was Cosmoline like a dealer thing in the States?
No, it came from the factory.
So
When they
so
were
how
shipped.
so
Yeah,
how
shipped.
how does the Concours world view Cosmoline? Like a car in Concours, should it have
Well,
Cosmoline?
viewpoints change. I believe in preparation, you should have the Cosmoline off. And
Off?
Just as perfect as possible. And back in the 90s, early 2000s, that was, if you were serious,
Yeah.
Cosmoline gone.
Really?
Yeah, it
But
was
but that's was factory applied.
Yeah, but it was supposed to be taken off by the dealer and dealer prep.
But it's
But
not,
no one ever
the
did.
way it left the factory, it wouldn't have had that. It's when they were getting ready to ship
Ship 'em.
that they put it on there. So, it's one of those things, and I kind of chuckle because my wife's uncle built Chevelles, and he's now become like a Chevelle authority because he built Chevelles for so long. And he always tells me that he laughs at these shows when he sees all these different paint marks. You've seen them.
Yeah.
And he said, he goes, we would have gotten fired if we let this car off the line with all these marks, because these were just internal. And at the end, you had to wipe it off once it's been torqued. But now you look and there's all these. They recreate all these marks.
But they're not supposed to.
But
have
he's like, he goes. I've told people. I go, someone would have lost their job if they would have let that car leave the assembly line with these marks on there. But now it's become like that's the way the factory did it, and it's really not evidently the way the factory did it.
Really? Because that's not. I never heard it put that way. That they're on. I mean, I've seen paint marks on cars that I've had.
Well, so
he worked on the line.
And this is the guy who worked on the line. It was it's very. So I think it's one of those things that. An urban legend becomes truth in the minds of people because they heard it from one person to another.
Could be.
But from a guy who actually worked on the line building these cars, it was interesting his perspective of these marks. So, to me, it's how serious you really want to win Concours, and how clean you want the car to be. We got the 964 done, so it looks much better. Is it like you see on some of these videos? No, because we don't want to spend, like Paul said, buying 500-pound ice in increments, and you're doing it to take these tiny, tiny pinpoint dots off that were stubborn and weren't coming off, and I'm not going to do it by hand or anything either. It is what it is.
So there was an interesting use of dry ice blasting that I watched on a channel called Tavarish. You probably heard of. Mm-hmm. And he has this McLaren P1 that he's rebuilding, and
the one that was in the
probably saw
it
if you were paying attention. You were on the internet at all. Well, I forget what hurricane it was, but it wasn't. It was within the past year.
It was a P1 that was floating in water.
Yep, yellow one floating in the water in Florida, and he bought it. And so, excuse me. So, what he did to clean that car up was that he and his buddies / coworkers rented a dry ice machine. And it wasn't just for the underside. They cleaned the whole car, like everything, with the dry ice blaster. So it was interesting to see. They're cleaning the wiring that's attached to the firewall behind the seats, which has plastic here, cloth here, metal, probably different types of metal. And you just take your dry ice blaster and you blast all of it. And
they did the interior.
It doesn't damage
everything.
it. It doesn't do anything. Like everything came out looking reasonably well. He's going to have to do some more cleaning.
That car, I watch that series, and every time I watch it, I'm like, that is the hugest challenge ever. That car has sand and rust in places where, you'll never be able to get that car completely clean. You can try, but you got to take it down to every millimeter because there's sand everywhere and debris everywhere. Yeah, but kudos to him. He's trying to build his P1 at half price. Yeah. So speaking of YouTube and videos, before we get into that, I want to remind folks to make sure to go to pca.org, and if you haven't signed up for e-brake news, do that, as well as performance news and test drive news. The latest video that would have dropped since today is the GT2 OMR.
Yeah, so we were a little late. Usually it's every other Saturday for a 1 mile review. We released it on Sunday. We had the GT2 OMR, which came out and Vu reviewed. Go watch that. It was 16,000 miles. Really nice example that's been driven, but not too much.
What a great car.
Yeah, and they all those 997 GT cars have heavy clutches, so Porsche must have changed it at some point when they realized.
It did. It was a cool car. But we noticed the the other video that we had talked about earlier was the Cayman autocross car with the GT3 engine. That video did really well off the bat, but last Tuesday when you sent out the e-brake and it got bounced, I noticed that the views didn't really climb, and normally when it's in e-brake you notice that run up. So of course when you resent it this past weekend, the numbers for that one went up, and hopefully the GT2 one will
I heard
be
it was the host myself, but
yeah, exactly.
It could always be the host.
Probably.
It's always the host.
Well, you never know.
Him,
but
him again.
Him
you know.
again.
Yeah,
But that you're doing the video for the Cayman autocross car was amazingly fun. The two owners there were super cool. The GT2, that car is wicked. That really is. I wish I had more of a road to try it on, but
Yeah, for sure.
Plus I think it was a little cold, and you said
it was
a
cold.
little
Yeah.
cold, yeah.
It was a little cold, and obviously the value of the car, and being rear-wheel drive, and it does have traction control or stability management. I didn't realize, and one of our members commented that in 2007 NHTSA passed a law that passenger cars had to have stability control, and that's why the 08 has it.
Yeah, and that's
pretty
why
cool.
I was
cool
surprised as to
factoid.
how short the throws were.
Super short.
Oh, yeah, because
It felt like an aftermarket shifter. It was that short.
So I've been in those cars for or several in 3.8 RS, 4.0 RS, the GT2 RS from the 97 era, and I've also driven a GT3 from that era. They're the shift action so tight, like on every single one, and the clutch action is enough to like bruise the bottom of your foot if you drive it for a day or two. And yet when you for these cars' purpose, being track cars or cars that are meant to be driven fast, if you've driven that car hard on track for like 10 minutes or hard on a back road, everything loosens up a little bit. So you have to drive it hard for it to feel, exactly how it's supposed to feel. But very good cars.
Yeah, it was heavy, and but driving after a few minutes, you get it. You adjust to it, right?
Yep.
So, let's talk about news. We've got some recalls here.
37 cars.
Yeah.
37 cars. God
So
bless them for
what was this
noticing
one
that
anyway?
37 cars need
Rear
seatbelt.
Rear
Yeah.
seatbelt.
seatbelt
Yeah.
anchors or something like
Yeah,
that.
I
Wasn't
looked.
torqued properly.
Yeah,
This is for Macan and
Panameras.
Panameras.
That few cars. If you have this car, you have probably been approached already from
Yeah.
Porsche.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that they.
Yeah, I looked
So-
because I was kind of interested because I have a Macan, but I think it only run through 2020. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
The next one is also, I think, about Macans, and
Yeah,
it
make
has-
Paul happy.
Yeah.
They're kind of like backtracking a little bit here on.
whether or not all
completely-
EV.
EV.
Yeah.
So I thought that they were when they. We'll have to go back and announce look at the announcement. But I thought that the Porsche on the Macan had already said that they're going to do the gas version alongside
Yes.
the EV for a while.
But it sounds like they're kind of like even reassuring dealers that it's not going to be as
They're not phasing it out as quickly as
they had talked about. Yeah.
I thought it, no, I thought
I thought it was all EV.
I thought it was
No,
EV
no,
already.
Damon's
No.
right. They said that it was going to be sold side by side. That they're still, but you could see where they got rid of the turbo and they had the GTS, and that's basically what you were going to start. They inferred that you would start seeing like a reduction of the gas and more up of the EV.
I thought the side by side was only Boxster.
No,
No,
I'm pretty
no,
sure
no,
that's
yeah.
the one that doesn't go side by side.
So I got it reversed.
Yeah, this was because it's their bestseller, and this all happened at a dealer meeting, and I think in Spain, and they I'm sure they heard a lot of an earful from the dealers because it's their bread and butter.
Oh, yeah, I'm
is
sure.
the Macan, and suddenly if people don't warm up to this, and part of this goes to the fact that the charging.
Infrastructure.
not there.
Not except for Tesla.
Yeah.
And now you probably heard, if you follow automotive news, is that GM and I think Ford are switching over to the Tesla charging port.
Boy.
And Tesla stands to make a lot of money unless the government gets involved to regulate how much they charge, because they could easily take it up to where it costs as much as gas.
Yeah.
It's a great charging network. I'll give Tesla that much.
Yeah, that's what Tesla
And
did
so-
right.
Yeah.
Huh?
So the investors are very they're rubbing their hands like Mr. Burns and saying excellent because it brings a lot more business to them. How will make Tesla owners feel when they pull up
And
and
it's
you
all
have a
full.
bunch of Porsches, VWs, and Fords filling up the superchargers, and they have to wait. As a Tesla owner, I probably wouldn't be happy.
Yeah.
I think the
About that.
article said a third of the cars that Porsche sells are Macans.
Something like
That's what
that.
the,
Yeah.
that's
Probably,
what the
yeah.
article
That sounds
said.
right. Yeah.
And you can't. That's a lot
You
of
don't wanna-
revenue
yeah.
in sales. Plus,
is.
it's the
You don't wanna mess
infrastructure
up that
piece that
recipe.
you can't.
Yeah, they still
It's
got
just not there.
They still got to work on Electrify America. Evidently, leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah,
So
I've heard
I
some of
just
that.
got back from the beach. We went out to Bethany, and there's the big outlets there, and they have a bunch of charging stations. But every single charging station I saw had like tape wrapped around it saying "coming soon." How mad would you be that all these things they put in and none of them work?
I think we have a gas station chain called Wawa here around here, and I'm seeing more and more of those with charging stations, which
they-
makes perfect sense.
Do they work?
I don't look that far.
Yeah, that's the thing is people are saying
No, actually, they're Teslas.
Oh, Tesla ones. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would say they probably do
That's
work.
good.
So a friend of mine has a Taycan and he lives in Southern California, and he decided to take it on a road trip to Vegas. And he figured he could make it. He said, but that range anxiety kicked in
Oh yeah.
as he was driving, and he stopped, I think he said 2 or 3 times. And one time he couldn't get it to sync up. One time it wasn't working.
Yeah.
I mean, he got there fine.
Right.
But
you think about what happens.
he
if you
said
go
that
to-
range anxiety
Sure.
is real.
We had one of our early Tycon web stories. Robin Warner in Michigan took it on a road trip, and he took it to the Electrify America station that was on his route, or one of the stations on his route, and he couldn't get. And this was over a year ago now, but he couldn't get it to charge at the what is it, the 350 kilowatt or the high version?
Right.
It was like 100 kilowatts down.
So now he's got to spend 2 hours there.
Yeah, and it was because the Electrify America station, whatever the places he was hooking up to, they all had some sort of issue.
Ugh.
So
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah,
see.
I mean, I'm hoping because I would love to commute a electric car.
Absolutely.
That would be perfectly fine with me.
Charge at home and have plenty of range to go back and forth.
Yeah, but it's like you said, a long distance. Just be prepared to make it an adventure.
You almost have to have a Tesla to do road trips.
So why do you say you want to commute in one? I'm curious. Just your take on it.
Oh, because they're more reliable than there's so many less moving parts.
Than your current commuter? Is that
Or
what you mean?
any ICE engine is just going
less-
to be more
less components.
reliable.
Yeah.
And gas wise, because and once the minute gas around here goes cheap, people just forget about that it was high, and they go out and they buy big trucks. And,
Suburban.
Yeah, Suburban, and then gas goes up, and they're like, oh my God.
What am I going to do with this? Yeah.
And and for let's face it, 95 is not exactly a driving paradise.
Yeah.
No.
So I wouldn't mind an electric car.
On the torque, man. I mean, the performance, a torquey motor is a torquey motor. I don't care if it's electric or gas. Torque is cool. So we're coming up on 60 minutes here. We do want to talk a little bit about the special edition, the Le Mans edition 911, but only a few
French only.
French
French
only.
only, yeah.
How many 72 of them will be made?
Yeah, and why is that, Bill? You
Is
had
that-
it right.
Did I have it right?
Yes, you did.
It is.
Oh,
72.
how many times Porsche participated at Le Mans?
Yep.
Yeah, I guessed. Well, I did the math because we were celebrating 75th anniversaries and
So
stuff.
the cool thing was they got input from Rod Emery and Cameron Healy, who owns the 46 car that won the first time for Porsche. It's the class win at Le Mans in '51. And if you ever been to Rennsport Reunion, I think they've had it for the past 2 Rennsport reunions.
Very cool
I'm sure
car.
they'll
We've
have
had
it
it
at
at
this
Tech
one.
Tactics.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool car. And so Mr. Healy owns that car, so he had input. Maybe wonder if he's going to buy one of these cars. And so they're numbered. It's a special edition. If you really want one, I guess you're going to have to import it from
I was about to say they're
France.
probably all spoken for by now.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, celebrating 100 years, not 100 races of Le Mans.
No. So speaking of celebrations, we celebrated Watkins Glen, but then we woke up and we were very sad.
Yes, it was their second win, too, and then it became their not second win,
Yeah.
because of a skid plate underneath was
How does that even
below
happen?
spec.
Did
They
it
said
get wear
they
out?
keep the
it
car.
was
They keep the
drag.
car low,
Yeah.
obviously, and it, like Paul said, it drags along the asphalt and just wears out. And it was 1 or less than 1 millimeter.
That's crazy.
That's like the tip of a pencil. But the rules are rules, and I didn't. And, Penske announced that they were going to protest, which they did, but I wasn't holding out hope because rules are rules, and
What that means is that they probably, started a little bit too low. Which is what the rules are
Well,
trying to
the
prevent.
article said that there was some sort of in-race damage that caused
I think was it a low
they
tire?
always get damaged, and that's just them wearing.
So you have to start
So-
thicker, knowing that's going to wear down
As,
to a lower
as
point.
No.
the race goes,
I got the impression it wasn't because of that. That something happened that that particular piece got lower, and so it hit more frequently.
Is that
I
the
think
car
that's
that
what-
had the flat tire and they had to go around the track? Because I thought I read somewhere where it had a tire going low or something, and that might have scraped enough
Scraped it off a
material
little
off
bit too much.
to go below spec. The good news, I think, is that once again, this car, at least in IMSA, is becoming much more competitive. In WEC, unfortunately, they have Ferrari and Toyota running, which are running a whole different system than LMDH and IMSA. But with the LMDH cars in North America, this car has become very competitive. So that's the highlight of this. Yes, we had the race win taken away from us. Yes, this throws us back a lot from getting the manufacturer and driver's title, which Penske wants. But the season's still going on, and we can we do well in the next few races. I think we can regain that point back. The customer team, JDC Miller, I think finished 4th, and so that was good for them, especially for a team that's just coming out of the gate and doesn't have nearly the experience of Penske Motorsports. That's very good news on that front. And as more customer cars show up, I think it'll increase the chances. So
And there you have it. Manny's
upward
going to
and
keep us
onwards.
updated on all this and translate it all to me because most of it's lost on me, to be honest with you.
car go fast, car good.
Cargo fast car is good. Don't get in trouble. Don't cheat.
Car finishes. Yeah.
All right, so little housekeeping here. Registration spots are still open for Works Reunion Monterey. It closes August 2nd, so look forward to
Including judging. I looked this morning, and I think there was 30 spots left in judging, which is almost unheard of.
Unheard of.
Yeah, I mean,
The
I
effects-
can't guarantee by the time this podcast comes out again,
Yeah.
well, it'll still be available. But if it is, that's
Get on
really
it.
the best spot on all of Works Reunion is the
Absolutely.
judging field.
Get on it. We talked about volunteer registration for Rennsport Reunion 7 already on Motorsports Reg. And, of course, if you're looking to go to Gateway to the West, there's still some spaces. We're not sold out yet.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Surprisingly, September 20th through 24th. Treffen is an amazing event. Take a look there. Anything else before we sign off?
I don't know if next week we'll be back to normal. I have to look at the schedule. I think we're still waiting for the podcast equipment to come.
14th is on Friday, so
Yeah, so
And
we
I
may
know-
have to do another MacGyver.
And I won't even be
set
here.
up.
I will actually be on my London tour with my wife for her 50th
Then
birthday.
you and the Goodwood thing is still in the air.
Wimbledon.
So
right?
yeah, she really a bucket list thing for her was to go to Wimbledon. She scored center court seats, 2 of them. I will not be in one of them. I'll be walking.
So you got denied on ball boy.
Did
Did they look at your 5K results? and
Honestly,
say,
honestly, I'm third wheeling because one of her good friends who's into tennis will be sitting in that second seat. I'll be cruising the grounds looking for the special food items that they sell at.
so now you're going to be bringing them food.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. But I did find out that I will make it to Goodwood on Friday, so I've got a little bit of a
VIP or with
hall
the
pass.
commoners?
I don't know yet, so I don't care. I mean, as long as I get to step foot in it, that's good
Yeah,
enough
it's
for me.
worth it. Goodwood's
So
so cool.
I
Yeah,
have
but once you've flown first class, you don't want to run coach.
Well, I've never flown first class nor business class, so it will all be good to me.
It's very good.
It is. Yeah.
So hopefully I will bring my microphones and my camera equipment just in case.
So this is the Goodwood, the Festival of
Festival of
Speed,
Festival
Speed.
Speed.
not the revival where everyone's
I'm
stressed.
hoping I'll get to see Mission X up close.
Yeah, hopefully.
And then
Yeah,
hopefully,
it should, because that's in museum on display.
I get to see a special car to be unveiled.
Well, rumors are that we may see the ST,
The ST,
come out
exactly.
in Goodwood.
So if it is, I will try to get to it and report live.
We have a correspondent out there reporting for us as well, so we'll be doubling up.
Well, they'll probably do a much better job and have better access than I will.
Yeah, we're hoping.
All right. Well, Paul, great having you, and thanks for behaving. For all of you listening, thank you. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, grab your VIN, head over to PCA.org. If you're looking to purchase your first, I actually got a text from my daughter's boyfriend's boss wondering how to get an allocation for a GT3. We're going to have a long conversation there, but we can share with you all of the knowledge that we have through the test drive program. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page to see behind the scenes photos and videos, Porsche Club Insider, all one word. As always, we love it when you drop a message. You can even email us at podcast@pca.org. If you want to stay in touch with all things PCA and the newsletters, as we mentioned earlier, sign up for those. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.